On Nitro as well, this is worth mentioning, I think, is where we would see the debut of JJ Dillon. He would return to Turner Programming for the first time since he left for the WWF. So this is when we would introduce JJ as an on-screen character, the WCW commissioner. That all happened here on April 21st, 1997.
I remember when JJ came back to us and he had called me trying to get in, and I went to Eric Bischoff with a great recommendation, because I always liked JJ because of what he could do in the office, and that goes back to the old Crockett times. And I remember Eric Bischoff said, "Well, you certainly are putting him over very, very hard. It's almost as if you and he have some sort of deal going on." I said, "No, Eric, legit. He's a good guy, and he'll help out in the office." I remember JJ and I basically, went to the WWE at the same time. I left early, but he hung around, and he was very distraught. And I think Vince was treating him unkindly, if that's correct. Vince was mean to him for some reason.
Well, what he did is he cut JJ's salary.
Well, that's being mean, isn't it?
There was a whole, I mean, this is an era, where I guess business was down in 93, but they soldiered on. Business was down in 94, but they soldiered on. But as I understand it, in 95, they cut everyone's salary. And by everyone, I mean the quote unquote wrestling people. Wrestling people got their salaries cut 50%.
Yikes.
So if you were a wrestling person like JJ Dillon or Bruce Pritchard, if you were making, 200 grand, now you're making 100 grand. If you were making 100 grand, now you're making 50 grand.
Yikes.
He did not pass those pay cuts on to the non-wrestling people. So people who had a background in marketing and this was their first foray into wrestling, they kept the same salary.
Okay.
And JJ felt a certain type of way about that, specifically because prior to the pay cut, he had gone to Vince, or Vince had come to him and said, "Hey, I don't want you to keep renting. I want you to put some roots down here. I want you to buy a home." And at the time, JJ had a much younger wife, and she was keen to start a family, and Vince wanted that for them. So they bought a beautiful house that had like an atrium in the center with a tree growing through the thing. And it was a beautiful house that his wife fell in love with. But when he went to go get the financing secured, he had trouble with it because they required a larger down payment than what he could come up with. And Vince said, "No problem. I'll just give you the money." Mm-hmm. So he did. And then he started taking it out of his paychecks, as I understand it, to make sure that he got his down payment recouped from JJ, and then continued that process even once his salary was cut in half. Well, when the salary was cut in half, of course, he could no longer afford
that house
payment. And the real estate market had certainly softened because it wasn't just the WWF in trouble, it was the economy. So as the economy went down, well, so did home prices, and interest rates were high. So it was impossible for them to just sell the house and figure it out. Eventually they did sell the house, took a massive loss, and he hightailed it out of there.
Yeah.
As I understand it, gave notice the weekend that Shane was getting married. And there's rumor and innuendo that perhaps JJ had been steering the ship during all of the various scandals, maybe most prolifically the steroid scandal, the one that nearly put Vince in prison. And as a result of that, maybe JJ was privy to some things that he shouldn't have been. As people like to say, maybe he knew where the bodies were buried.
Wow. This is a great story.
And Vince was very concerned that his family, instead of celebrating what a great moment this should be, when Shane McMahon married the heir to Mazola cooking oil, this is, these two power families getting together in a beautiful ceremony. Perhaps the news media would be there looking for quotes and interfering in a beautiful family event. So he was desperate to see, what are your plans? And of course he found out his plans were go to WCW, move down to Atlanta, restore my sanity and my pay and my income and get some more stability in my life. And so here he is debuting several months later, because that was 1996, here in WCW. He's on air now as a television character, being the WCW commissioner. And by the way, if you have an opportunity to meet JJ in real life, if he's at some event or meet and greet or some sort of convention or fan fest in your area, go out of your way to do it. He's in fine health. He's great. But I am just saying, as some of our legends get a little older, it becomes more and more apparent this will be the last time that you might get to see some of those different folks. I just can't help but think about the fact that we had guys like Pat Patterson, who was so full of life at the very first StarCast. Man, he was going way, way too soon. And so many others. I encourage you, these legends like JJ, go out of your way, go say hello, go get a picture, go get an autograph. If not for you, for them. It means a lot to them that you still remember.